Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Bite. I'm your host, Eddie Aldrete. While San Antonio residents are enjoying the lazy days of summer, San Antonio City Council members are not, because they're staring down a budget gap. They have to deal with Project Marvel, and they need to deal with the flooding tragedy that lost the lives of 13 San Antonio residents. So in this episode, we are bringing together Councilman Marc Whyte, who's returning from District 10, and newly elected Councilwoman Misty Spears from District 9. So Marc and Misty, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks, Eddie.
So Marc, I want to start with you, and I think I'm going to ask you a follow-up question on this one, but the first primary issue is what's happening as a result of the tragedy that occurred that lost the lives of so many people. Both it impacted your district as well as Councilman Jalen McKee Rodriguez in District 2.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, it is a tragedy, and our thoughts and prayers are with the families of the victims. So many lives lost. It's devastating for not just District 10, but also for, of course, our greater San Antonio community. Moving forward, it's important to first figure out what, if anything, the city could have done better to possibly prevent this loss of life. And I want to be really clear at the outset that we're not sure yet if these lives could have been saved. But there is going to be an investigation. We have hired an outside engineering firm to come in to work with our Public Works Department, SAPD, as well as our fire department, to try to determine the cause. You know, we've heard accounts of a big wall of water that sort of rushed down this road. We also know that there was some construction going on in the area. And so really we need experts to come in and figure out, again, what, if anything, we could have done to prevent this. But I will say that as we move forward to budget talks, I do believe that we need to focus more on San Antonio's infrastructure. We have an aging infrastructure in this city. We have old pipes that's causing us to lose thousands upon thousands of gallons of water every single day. We have 22% of the roads in this city are in poor or failing condition. We got sidewalks with gaps in them. We have drainage issues. And so moving forward in this budget and beyond, I would like to see a renewed focus on putting our resources into our aging infrastructure, because I think the people deserve to have a modern, up-to-date infrastructure in their daily lives.
So none of us saw this tragedy coming, but is this a reason why you emphasize so strongly basic blocking and tackling, doing the fundamentals of city governance?
Yeah, and again, I want to be careful because, we don't know if it was the infrastructure in the area here that necessarily led to this, tragic flooding occurrence. But yes, I say it all the time, and my colleagues are sick of me saying it, but our job on City Council should be looking at how we can most directly and positively impact our residents' day-to-day lives. And that's public safety, of course, number one. But number two is infrastructure. People deserve to wake up every day, get in their cars, have good streets to drive on to get to work, not have to worry about potholes everywhere, flooding issues, etc. If they're walking their kids to school, they should be able to have a nice sidewalk to walk on to safely get their child to whatever school it is. I mean, it's the basics. That's what city council and city government is about. It's the basics of people's day-to-day lives, and we've got to do better in that regard.
What can you share with Misty Spears? She's a newly elected member of the city council, and this is not necessarily something you prepare for. So what advice can you share with her about what to do when things like this happen?
Yeah, well, first I will say congratulations to the residents of District 9 because they hit a home run when they elected Misty to be their councilwoman. But, these are unfortunately the types of things that happen. And as a city leader, as Misty already knows, it's about, leading your residents through not just the good times, but of course the bad times. And when the bad things happen, it's important to figure out why they happened, and again, what we can do better moving forward to prevent them in the future. And so this job is tough. It's not easy. And when things like this happen, there's a seriousness that comes over City Hall. And, I know that Misty is going to be a great voice right there with me to, again, advocate for the basics and to push for our municipal government to be fulfilling its purpose, which, again, I think is to make people's day-to-day lives better.
So I would second the congratulations on your victory. And I know that you heard a lot on the campaign trail that you are focused on. You've talked about public safety. You've talked about public parks. But this is not something that you traditionally will hear on the campaign trail or when you're block walking door to door. So have you had a chance to visit with your staff? I'm assuming you're staffed up now.
We have everyone pretty well staffed up. We're going through the HR processes there. But this actually was one of the things I focused on during my campaigning. I focused on back to basics, and infrastructure was my number 2. I'm really in favor of trying to mitigate problems in infrastructure early so they don't become huge problems later. And so just maintaining our assets, our infrastructure, prevents us having to make a larger investment later. And I think that's smart investment, and I think it's a smart way to approach infrastructure in our city. So those are the things I'm looking to do for District 9. But I do appreciate that because it is something we have to be close to our district during those difficult times. And I think you showed that you are in District 10. So it's a good example on what to do when everything's not going well. Have
your 2 chiefs of staff or your teams gotten together yet to kind of share lessons learned? What do you do when you have a crisis like this? Especially since it's a new team, I would assume, in your office.
We're actually having our first staff meeting tomorrow. So okay. I think some of our staff have spoken and knew each other prior. So I have a good mix of experience and fresh faces as well. So we're excited to get to work with Councilman Whyte's team. So
you're obviously facing some headwinds. You not only have this tragedy to deal with that right now sounds like it's in the hands of the city manager, having brought on the engineering firm to be able to do the investigation and to understand what needs to be fixed to avoid or mitigate the situation from happening again. But you're also facing a budget gap. Mark, previously, council would take any surpluses that might come from CPS Energy, and there would be, it's like when you burst open a piñata. There was a mad scramble to try to fund a lot of different pet projects, and we're no longer in that era with this budget gap. So how does the council now face the prioritization of the budget?
Yeah, so I've said this, repeatedly since, word got out about our budget deficit, is it's not really a revenue problem we have at the city, it's a spending problem. And one of the reasons that we went forward and pushed our zero-based budgeting initiative in my first term is because we kind of saw this coming. We spend money at City Hall redundantly. We spend it on programs we don't have metrics to determine if they're actually working. We spend money duplicatively and on things, frankly, that aren't the responsibility of a city government. And so I am hopeful that moving forward with our new budgeting process, we're going to begin to spend money in a different fashion because we have to, right? And our citizens are expecting this city council to, again, do things that can positively and directly impact their day-to-day life. And that's where their tax dollars need to go, not on reproductive justice funds and not on programs where we have absolutely no oversight, and so we don't know if they're working or not. We had the example in my first 6 months on council where it was discovered we were giving money to a business development organization that was basically abusing it, and and wasting the money. We cannot afford to do that anymore. And I'm confident, in conversations with our city manager, Eric Walsh, that he's gonna get us back to basics, and it's not going to be easy. And this coming Friday, we're having our big budget talk before council goes on that July break, and he's going to lay out some of the areas where we're going to have to make some cuts, and it's probably going to be difficult for a lot of council members to hear, but it's our responsibility to spend money properly as a city government, and I'm hopeful we're going to do a better job of that in the coming years.
So the July break is really just council doesn't meet in a session, but you're still working behind the scenes. It's still definitely, you're not taking 2 weeks vacation time on any sort of break, as you have the budget briefings. Have you yet had any of the briefings, or that's what's coming up?
We've had briefings about briefings.
Okay.
Just high level, here's what to expect, and preparing me as best as possible to come in to B session, A session, and our workshop on Friday.
And when do you get the first budget? When does when does city staff come forward to council with a proposed budget? Do you have a date on that yet, or do you have insight from city management?
Have you seen the trial budget yet?
I have gone through parts of it. It's a giant.
It is.
It's enormous, but I have broken through quite a bit of it.
Yeah.
So I guess and this is a good opportunity to talk about, it seems like Councilwoman Adriana Rocha Garcia kind of set the bar for the person most diligent who went through the budget with Post-it notes on every single page. I think she shocked City Manager Eric Walsh at the time that she did that, but she did go through the entire budget and had questions about a lot of components. So she sort of set the bar on the budget side. But what are you expecting based on what you're hearing now, Misty, about how difficult it may be to close the gap?
I'm expecting this to be a different sort of discussion than we've seen in prior years, for sure. So it will be challenging to all of us. We have to tighten our belts. There's no question about it. And reducing spending and focusing our spending on what's important, what our citizens expect in their city, which are the basics. And we have to meet those benchmarks. And we have to provide those services. And so doing that while still balancing the budget, I mean, that's going to be challenging. But we can do it.
Mark, you learned something in your first term about the budget, and I think what you came away with was by the time city staff presented or proposed a budget to council, you thought there was a lot more leeway in there, but it turned out to be 95% or so already baked in. So share with Misty your takeaway from that process.
Yeah, and Misty and I have already talked about this because that's very, very true. In my first budget cycle, you get the big binder, which you've gotten now, and then you come back in August and 99% of it never changes. Mm-hmm. And it's like you're experiencing a mountain of information, and it's set, and we move on. And the only thing that we ended up fighting about, the alleged amendments, or that we talked about, are where does the extra CPS money go to which particular projects. So the time to do the work is really right now, and is letting Eric know, like I hope we all will, that here's where we want to see our dollars spent. And I have a good friend here that represents, and we will leave the name of the group out, but she represents a group here that every budget cycle gets their share of money. And the other day she called me and said, "Hey, I need to talk to you about the upcoming budget." And I said, "Stop right there." I said, "Stop right there. Happy to go to lunch with you. I enjoy your company and all of that." But the days of all of these groups coming back to us and getting their $100,000 or $250,000 or $500,000 just because that's the way it's always been done, that has to stop.
Well, and you're now facing fewer federal grants. We've seen the administration cut back and in some cases claw back money that they had awarded, and so now you as a city have to decide, as a city council, you have to decide if you're going to use city funds to fund things that were previously being paid for with federal money.
Yeah.
Or do away with them.
And Eddie, you know what amazes me is that we do, as Misty knows as well, we do a budget survey every single year where we ask the public, what are your priorities? What do you want to see us spend your money on? Because let's remember, it's the citizens' money.
And it's usually homelessness and public safety.
It's the homelessness problem. It's public safety. It's infrastructure. Those always come back as the top three. And so I hope there's going to be many of us that point to that budget survey, right? Because they're going to show us the results if we haven't seen them before. And we can say, why are we spending over here on X, Y, and Z when the citizens are telling us exactly where they want their money to go? And if we're representing the people, we need to listen to the people and spend their money accordingly.
You agree?
Completely agree. I'm here to be an advocate for District 9, and what they say is what I'm going to say. So.
Well, as a resident of District 9, I would like to put in my request for your attendance during National Night Out on our block. So I'll follow up with you later, but would love to see you.
You didn't have a pothole you needed Misty to get over there and fix on your street?
I had a street light that got repaired under John Courage, and that was 48 hours later it was repaired. So we'll hold you to that standard.
You can. We're up and running. We've been doing a lot of those, including the things that I learned about on the campaign trail. I kept a note, and we're knocking those out left and right too.
Well, that's what it takes when it comes to public service. So thank you for that. I want to move to Project Marvel. You not only spent a lot of time on the campaign trail in the regular election, but you spent an additional 30 days block walking, talking to people. There were some media outlets that weren't happy that you didn't do forums, but you said, I have to win this by going door to door and doing it the old-fashioned way. And it appears that was the strategy that worked for you. But what I want to know is, during the course of that, what were people telling you or asking you about Project Marvel?
How are we going to pay for it? That's overwhelmingly their concern, that we're going to use their tax dollars to pay for mostly the arena. I think there was a lot of just not understanding the project and all of the different parts of it that it encompasses and the impact it would have on San Antonio. And I've expressed that frustration already, that we need to do a better job of explaining this entire project, in which there's so many different pieces to it. And but overwhelmingly, everyone's just talking about the arena and how are we going to pay for it. And they don't want their tax dollars to go towards funding another arena. That's that's all I heard. That is, quite frankly, all I heard.
So, the $4 billion number keeps getting thrown out there. Do you believe that people think they're going to walk into the voting booth and see a $4 billion tax? Because that's not how it's going to be structured. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of misconception about that, but I was just curious as to what you hear out on the street.
I would agree. I think that's, again, goes back to, we need to explain what we're talking about here. They are hearing, it was, I think there's no question that there's a sweet spot that everyone would feel comfortable with and wants to keep the Spurs here, wants to have them be here. But where is everyone comfortable with any dollars going in at all? Do they get a say-so? How much is being funded privately? How much is coming from other governmental entities? These are the things that everyone needs explaining about. And so we're having some town halls coming up here in July. Each district will have town halls so that people can come ask those questions. But, those are not always widely attended. We need to make sure, again, which to your point, this is why I decided to go door to door and not expect people to come to me. We need to do a good job of messaging and understanding and explaining what this project is looking like so people can have a well-formed opinion about it.
And Mark, I guess the hard part is we're heading into the summer where people start traveling and going on vacation, and so they're not going to be paying attention until they come back from vacation, and we're in the back to school, mid-August, back to school time frame. But are you hearing similar concerns that Misty heard?
Yeah, absolutely. The public is, I think, pretty overwhelmingly against this. And I think there's several reasons for that. Number one, I think the rollout, as I've said to you many times, the rollout of this was absolutely botched from the very beginning. Number two, there is a general distrust in government. I think the lack of transparency that we've seen in some respects here at City Hall and in other governments across state, federal level as well, I think lends itself to have the public not believe everything that their elected officials tell them. So people feel like the cost of this project is going to be put on them and they don't want it. Right. So for us, and my personal belief, of course, is that this project could be transformative for San Antonio. It's something that I think could generate really a substantial amount of revenue for our city that would help us do a lot of the things that we want to do moving forward. Of course, we have to keep our San Antonio Spurs. It's not just about the games. They are a part of the fabric of this community, and we want them to have a world-class facility, of course. But it's got to be done right. And to this point in time, City has not been able to go to the residents and say, here's how we're going to pay for all of it. And that is a source of extreme frustration for me because this has been going on for a year now. And the fact that we still can't tell them that again builds and makes that distrust grow, right? Because they're saying, why at this point can't we get those numbers? So very, very quickly, we need to be able to tell the public how we're going to pay for it. And then we need to talk to them as well about the infrastructure, right? It's not just about the stadium. How are we going to pay for the infrastructure around the stadium? We need to be open, transparent, forthright. And then again, the best news about all of this is that the citizens are going to get to vote in November. Mm-hmm. And it's our job, Misty, me, the rest of council, the mayor, it's our job, in my opinion, to make sure the citizens have all of the information so that they can make an informed vote.
Yes.
Well, we're in July, and August is your deadline to put something on the ballot, and then it will be voted on in the November election. So we're sort of there.
Running out of time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Misty, you taught me something during the campaign, and that was that District 9, which a lot of other council members have said gets everything. But you made a statement that we don't have enough parks in District 9. Right. Now, Hardburger Park is probably one of the largest and one of the most well-known, which I believe a portion of it is in District 9 and a portion of it is in District 8. But tell me about that, because that's something you campaigned on.
I did talk about that. The result is that you have neighborhood parks being overused by citizens that don't live in those neighborhoods. And then also the parks that we do have, their useful lives are being cut short because they're being overused again. The replacement value for different equipment, playground equipment, for example. Mitchell's Landing is a great example. It's a brand new park already replacing things almost weekly, because it's being used by so many residents. It's one of the top parks because it's accessible by all. It's one of the top parks in the city, and it's a gem for the whole city and especially for District 9. But, we just don't have enough parks in District 9 at all, and it's important for so many other things. It's important with drainage and green space and water and quality of life, and we could go on and on about why parks are important to the city. And so as a consequence, too, we see neighborhoods, parks, like Encino Park has a park that's being used by a lot of neighborhoods in the area, which is fine. They're fine with it, but then they have to pay in their HOA to replace that equipment. Is that fair? What about you, Eddie? Do you have a park in your neighborhood?
We're in the woodlands of Camino Real, which is adjacent to Bluffview. And Bluffview has its own park, but we do not.
A beautiful pool and park and everything.
Yeah, they do.
When's the last time you were on a swing?
It's been a while. But these are issues that are important to the residents. And then one of the other issues on the campaign trail that I heard you talk a lot about was public safety.
Yes.
I moved to San Antonio from Austin in 2001, and I moved into District 9. I've been in District 9 since 2001. When I was watching the evening news and I saw crime, it would always get my attention until I realized, I don't have to worry about it because it's not in my neighborhood. But probably in the last 5 or 6 years, they start rattling off the neighborhoods where these crime incidences are occurring, and it's like, that's down the street from me. That's a mile away. That's like in the neighborhood next to mine. And so I think you hear conflicting information about whether crime is going up or down, but the reality is that the residents probably feel it's encroaching on me. The citywide level may be going down, but some of the recent activity is much closer, too close to my home is what some people will say.
I completely agree. Those are all the things I was hearing in the block walking and in campaigning, that we're seeing it in areas we hadn't seen it before. And it's just very jarring to it just makes you feel different in your home and in your space. And when you want to be able to walk around your neighborhood and feel completely safe. Everyone deserves that. And that's why public safety is number one for everyone. That's the cornerstone of a city. And so I'm fully behind all public safety that we need to do. And that, we talk a lot about feeling safe, but it's also, you got to talk about response times for fire and EMS. Those things are really impactful too. That makes the news, and you hear that all over the city. They're doing so much hard work, and their incidents per shift are 8 or 9, and each time they have a major incident, it's like a concussion for that firefighter. So we're seeing burnout rates at levels we've never seen before. Same with our law enforcement. So I think a challenge we're going to face is that they just gave a raise in Houston, 36% raise in Houston, and they have a 1,000 officer requirement in Dallas. These are huge competitors for us. There's only one pool of people interested in law enforcement. So how do we attract the top talent to be in San Antonio? One way is San Antonio is a great place to live, and it does have less crime comparatively. However, what can we do in our roles in the city council to attract and retain talent? And that doesn't always equate to dollars. There's lots of things that we can do to support our law enforcement and firefighters and dispatchers so that they want to be in San Antonio, that it's just, your workplace. What are the things you would want to see in your workplace? Just managing those things, and that's not always money.
Mark, this has been a real sore spot with you. You have been preaching about more cops on the street, that we're not doing it fast enough. Recently, it came out that the city of Dallas, which is smaller than the city of San Antonio, has 4,000 police officers to our 2,500 police officers. So what metric are we using to determine how many police we need to be able to be safe other than budget?
Yeah, so we listened to our SAPD. What do they need? And when I got on council, Chief McManus said we need to have more officers that are able to patrol, right? We need to shift the paradigm to where more officers are on patrol as opposed to assigned to some sort of specific task. And to do that, we need 200 more police officers. As you know, the city's plan was to fund 65, 65, 65 over the next 3 budget cycles. I've made a proposal to shorten that to 2. Why are we going to wait 3 years to get the officers we need? We need to do 100 in this budget cycle, 100 in the next, and get them on the street as quickly as possible. And if you needed data to support the fact that police help decrease crime, we did that UTSA study. The results came out a couple months ago, placed more officers on the street, on patrol in high crime areas, and guess what we found? Crime level in those areas went down. I always argue with my friend in District 2 about this, and he says, oh, more police don't deter crime. I say, really? You ever driven along the highway, right? When there's an officer driving along next to you, everybody drives the speed limit. When that officer exits, everybody speeds up. Police help deter crime. As Misty said, it is our number one priority as a city council, keeping people safe. And so we need to get these extra 200 officers on the street as quickly as possible so they can get out there and patrol, as Chief McManus has said is needed. And I think if we do that, we are going to see crime go down. We are going to see our residents start to feel safer in their homes and traveling around the city.
And I guess, Misty, as of this recording, the mayor has not established the city council committees yet. So it's probably hard to put in a request to serve on a committee if you don't know that committee is going to exist. But I'm assuming in the back of your mind you have some things that you want to, some committees that you would like to serve on.
I do. Are you asking me to share what they are?
No, you don't have to. If you're, that's why I said you're welcome to. But it may be awkward because we haven't seen the mayor come out with a list of which committees. But I'm assuming if there is a public safety committee, you would like to serve on that.
Of course. That I want to serve on the committees that have correlate to the back to basics, everything I was campaigning on. So for me, that is public safety number one, and economic development, and and infrastructure was top of my list, and so the committees that have to do with those issues for District 9 and for all of San Antonio are what I'm interested in for sure. So
one of the reasons why I wanted to partner an incumbent council member with a newly elected council member was for the two of you be able to share some thoughts, some ideas, some concerns, some goals. And so obviously the two of you have already been communicating, but Misty, do you have a question for Councilman Whyte that may help guide you on your term on the council?
Well, I think that's partly it is what is it that I don't know I should know?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a good one.
What do I need to ask that I wouldn't know to ask? I've seen that come up already a few times. I went, man, I wish I'd asked Mark.
Yeah.
But,
well, I'll tell you, for me, and I've shared this with Eddie before, I thought a lot before I got on council about how I was going to interact with my colleagues, right? Building the friendships and the relationships to help, get us to come together and do good things on the dais. One thing I never considered, though, that I think is really important, and you're experiencing it right now, is how you interact with staff.
Yeah.
Eric Walsh really does a good job.
City manager.
The city manager. He really does a good job. It's not that I don't have my issues sometimes with some of the things, but he does a great job. I mean, what a tough role he has, right? Dealing with 11 different personalities and trying to make it all work. And his assistant city managers do a great job as well. By and large, staff really is very, very professional. And again, they're all pulling in the same direction. But it is important to build those relationships with staff and talk to them about how they can help you get the things done that you're seeking to do for the district. They also have a lot of the information that we need to do our jobs and make the decisions that we need to make. So I think that ensuring that you're getting the full information from staff, that everything's going forward in a transparent manner so that you can relay it to your constituents is very, very important. And so as time goes on, you'll start to know who to go to for what, and that's very, very valuable.
And I think there were a couple of times where you came out of a conversation with Eric not realizing he wasn't disagreeing with you over policy. It was more over application, how he was going to apply the policy. And he was having to deal with 9 other council members and the mayor. And so while he took value in your opinion, he had to try to make it fit in the box.
Yeah, and the reality is, it's the same things that happen at City Hall. A lot of times happen outside, and what I mean by that is people like doing things the way they've always been done, right? Because that's the easiest, and that's what they know. And when somebody says, and again, I'll go back to zero-based budgeting, when somebody proposes something different, there's a little bit of resistance.
Well, let's just go back and remind people. So this was an idea that you brought to council that was sort of patterned after the Texas Sunset Commission that would force an agency in the city to have to start from like ground zero and build their budget back up. So you have to account for and validate for and vouch for your budget and why you do the things you do. And it's during that process on the state level where they find a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse.
Right. And the way we've sort of always done budgeting here, more or less, is each year, it's called incremental budgeting. Every department gets, 3% more money, and government grows, and we never go back to check what's working and what's not. And zero-based budgeting in its purest form requires a city department to start with zero, come before us and justify each expense in their budget for the next year based upon the results that they want to achieve. So budgeting for results rather than just to spend the money. So we're going to put into place, as Eric has said, sort of a hybrid zero-based budgeting model. We're going to start with 4 departments. And
that was an example, sorry for interrupting, but that was an example, I think, of where he had to figure out as city manager, how am I going to do this with all the agencies? And that's where you all agreed on the hybrid approach.
That's right, because he's picked now 4 departments where we're going to start. We're going to see how it works with those, and then go from there. But
and in the end, Mayor Nurnberg ended up agreeing with you.
That's right. It was a 5-0 vote at the governance committee. And this is going to set us on a path, I think, to spend our money better. But yes, it's an example of working with city staff to come up with a way to do things better. And I think I know in talking with you, you're with me on like that's our job. How can we do things better and more efficiently as a city government for the betterment of San Antonians?
Now, do you have a question for newly elected City Council member Misty Spears?
Yeah. Well, I guess my question would be, tell everybody why it is that you ran for city government and what you're looking to do in your first year.
In my first year. Well, I ran because I was already working for Commissioner Moody in constituent services, so I was
County Commissioner Grant Moody. Precinct 3. District 9 is in Precinct 3. Mm-hmm. So I was working in District 9. I grew up in District 9. So this is home for me. That's really important to point out. I feel there's not an inch of District 9. I don't have some story or memory or a friend that lived in that house or something, some tie to District 9. It feels like a giant home for me. So it wasn't a stretch when I started to see that, we had an opportunity with the open seat to see District 9 manifest the things that they were telling me they wanted to see. And I had the unique perspective of being able to hear it from so many different places. So I had a good pulse on what everyone wanted. I don't think you would have that if you weren't already visiting all the neighborhoods on the regular. And so I was. And so I knew, hey, we all want the same things here. And so I really talked to my husband about it, and it just was on my heart that I can do this, and I want to do this. And your husband's in public service. He's Adrian Spears is Justice on the 4th Court of Appeals.
Yes. It's always been very important to both of us. Public service and volunteering is just something we hold as in high regard in our home and in our families. He comes from a long line of judges, so I just decided to do it and received a lot of encouragement to do so. And I'm glad. I'm excited. I'm hopeful. I have a lot of hope. I feel very hopeful for San Antonio. I think we have great opportunity ahead of us. I mean, we've talked a lot about, cutting spending and all the troubles we're experiencing and seeing, but let's not forget all the hopeful things we have ahead of us. And at the risk of sounding a bit like Pollyanna, I do feel that way. And I want to stay in that place. I think that's the only way forward. Otherwise, it's just bleak outlook all the time. We can't live that way.
Yeah. There are other issues that you will be forced to face. One of them, Mark, you were on the council when the council adopted the Reproductive Justice Fund. The Texas Attorney General filed a lawsuit against the city, and Senator Donna Campbell got her bill passed preventing municipalities from spending money to reimburse women for travel expenses who were going for an out-of-state abortion. The governor has signed that bill, by the way, but that bill doesn't go into effect until September 1st. In the meantime, the 15th Court of Appeals ruled, issued an injunction and said that the city cannot use public funds unless it's for a public purpose and not for the benefit of a few individuals. So that might be a guideline for this, council to use on top of, because I would imagine during this process of zero-based budgeting is where you're going to find some of the spending in these areas.
Well, I'm going to knock on wood before I say this, but I think, thankfully, we are finally at the end of the road on this Reproductive Justice Fund issue. And I said from the very beginning, right, this is not about whether you're pro-choice or you're pro-life. Everybody's entitled to have their own beliefs on that. This is, again, back to the role of city government and how we spend our citizens' tax dollars. And it is not the role of city government to spend our citizens' money to send folks out of state to receive abortion-related services.
Well, to your point, there were 3 members of the council, 3 of your colleagues, John Courage, Marina Aldrete Gavito, and Manny Pelayas, who stated on the dais that they were pro-choice, but they were still against the spending of this money because they thought, in particular, Manny warned the lawsuit would come, which it came a day or two later.
Yeah, really proud of those folks for that vote because, again, they were adhering to, at least in that instance, on the principle of city government needs to stay in its lane. Mm-hmm. And now what we have seen is the Court of Appeals rule in a way that enjoins the city from spending the money for this. And as you stated, Donna Campbell's bill that black letter law outlaws this kind of behavior by cities goes into effect September 1st, which is 6 weeks from now. So for all intents and purposes, this should now be over. The city of San Antonio should stop spending our citizens' money on this issue. We've already spent more than $500,000 in legal fees fighting this thing, right? I mean, wouldn't it be nice if that money would go to hiring more officers or fixing our streets? And on that note, by the way, last year, folks don't know, we spent more than $6 million defending ourselves in various lawsuits. Now, some of that, of course, you can't control because anybody can sue us for any frivolous thing. But things like the Reproductive Justice Fund, where we do things that we very well know or should know are against the law, we're just giving our citizens money away when we've got to go and then fight those things in court. So I'm pleased with the ruling from the 15th Court this week, and hopefully this puts an end to this.
Well, I'm excited for you both. You both have, a strong vision and outlook for what you hope to achieve. You've both learned to communicate with each other and lean on each other. Mark, you talked earlier about building the relationships on council. The relationship that you developed with Jalen McKee Rodriguez, made it easier for the two of you to come together to try to figure out what to do on this flooding tragedy. And that's where those relationships really come in handy.
Yeah, and Misty and I have already talked about it. These people on council, big hearts. They want to do right by the citizens of San Antonio as well. I've enjoyed getting to know so far our new council colleagues, Eva Lise and Edward and Rick. And did I get everybody? Oh, and of course we have the new mayor as well. Everybody wants to do right by the city. We have differences of opinion, of course, on how exactly we're going to get there. But I think if we all respect one another, agree to disagree sometimes, work collaboratively, which I know is a strong suit of Misty's, we're gonna get there and do well for the city.
Well, as the newly elected member, I'm going to give you the final word on any last thoughts you want to share.
Well, I do want to. I just kind of want to corroborate what Councilman Whyte said, but he was a great help to me. There was a lot coming at us for inauguration. It was a long day, and he held my hand the whole way through. Showed me everything, where to go, where to be. You're just trying to get your feet under you, and he's been a great help. But he's right. There's been a lot of help from the other members on the council. They've been very welcoming and kind, and we've got some funny people, new people. Edward's quite funny. So, warm-hearted and generous in spirit. So I feel like there's a lot of collaborating we can do, and their hearts are in the right place. So I guess I'm just repeating what he said, but he's right. And I think we have a lot to look forward to. We can be very, very hopeful about the future.
Well, and the citizens of San Antonio are very hopeful for your service and all of your colleagues as well. So I thank you both for coming in and look forward to having you back on the show sometime soon.
Thanks for having us.